Clearly, Shamari shows some of those human aspects you were mentioning.
Absolutely. From a leadership standpoint, from a want-to standpoint, just knowing that guy's going to bring his lunch pail every Saturday gives the players that's playing next to him confidence.
And then he moved to nickel this offseason.
Yeah.
What about him made you trust his ability to get multiple positions?
With Coach Ward and our scheme, it's a very aggressive scheme. So just to have that type of guy playing nickel, being able to blow up screens, really was a weakness for us last year, and it's a strength for us this year, just as far as his demeanor and how he approaches the game, him wanting to be physical, and him playing in that nickel role gives him an access to be a little bit closer to the trash and get his hands dirty.
Yeah. And then he showed that in the last game, had a few screens that he blew up and then forced the fumble. What did you see in his performance, specifically?
His energy is infectious. Him out there putting his helmet and getting his pads underneath him and being able to have some big hits is infectious energy, and guys are able to rally kind of behind him. So he was able to kind of set the tone early on in that Texas State game, but that's just who he is. I mean, the Utah game last year really was a game that kind of exemplified what kind of guy Shamari was. The game's a little bit out of reach, but he's out there, splattering guys and putting his all. He leaves his all on the field every Saturday.
And then Kenny said he's way more of a quiet type of leader. What is his leadership style that you see? Obviously, on the leadership council.
He's a guy that leads with his pads. He leads with the example that he provides on the field. He's not really vocal, off the field and in passing in the hallway, but he's loud in between these white lines, and I feel like that matters. And over the years, guys are different. From a human standpoint, you got a lot of guys that are loud outside of the field but are quiet in between the hashes. You got guys that are quiet in the hallways but super loud on the field.
And how do you feel the other players have kind of accepted his leadership style?
Because he's not a guy that just talks about it, he's a guy that lives it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is what players respect nowadays. You got a lot of guys that, want to win the popularity contest, want to be rah-rah, but on the field, they're quiet and they're insecure and they're not confident. So when guys see a guy can talk about it and then he's about it on Saturdays in between these white lines and on practice every day, then that's really a testament to who he is and as a person, and guys can easily follow behind it. Now, guys are real conscious of, who am I actually following? Is this guy really about it, or is he a pretender? And Shamari is not that, so that he got the respect of our teammates in that fashion.
Do you see guys like Shamari and those veteran players leading by example for some of the younger players, like in the cornerback room?
Absolutely. Guys rally behind them. They see those guys are the kind of dudes. Obviously when you get here, you see what's on paper. But when you get in a practice setting, you can really feel these guys and see how they're coming. Shamari is a guy that everybody has no questions, no doubts about on Saturdays. That guy's going to perform. He's going to bring his lunch pail. He's going to give it everything he's got.
Speaking of those young guys, we saw Rodney Bimage with the pick six here in practice. What can you speak about his growth over the course of the season so far?
He's had a lot of growth from a mental standpoint. Obviously he hasn't played a lot these past 2 weeks, but he is getting the opportunity to game plan. He's getting the opportunity to see how we prepare for opponents, to see how we kind of tweak things here or there, and he's able to apply it in a practice setting. So just got to keep him on course, but I think the future is super bright for Rodney Bimage.
Coach Dillingham has said over the course of the past couple weeks that the team needs to learn how to win. How have you seen the secondary from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some great opportunities. First game we're up 30-0. We faced a little adversity. We pulled away with the win. Then last week we're on the road. We scored a touchdown first. They go 21 unanswered. We're on the road and we're kind of in the rabbit hole. We're kind of down. So just to see the team persevere through those 2 weeks is really a testament that I feel like they needed to experience, because that's what the Big 12 is. The Big 12 is going to be a bunch of fourth quarter games, and essentially you have to make teams tap in the Big 12 because they're not going to give up.
Yeah, you have some Big 12 ties yourself over at TCU in Texas. Do you feel like having that experience and that familiarity is sort of more of a comfortable standpoint?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the Big 12. I'm really excited for these guys to experience the Big 12. Our first road game, Texas Tech does a tremendous job from an atmosphere standpoint, fanfare, whatnot. So it'll be a great environment. I'm somebody that kind of likes road games, so guys can kind of focus and have a bunker mentality, because it's kind of us against the world. So to go in that environment is going to be a learning experience for our players as well. But if we can come out with a victory in Lubbock, Texas on Saturday, it's going to mean so much to the culture we're trying to establish here long term.
Speaking of that culture, a lot of players are part of that Texas to Tempe connection. Did you see them feel more at home when they stepped on the field?
Absolutely. Anytime you play in Texas or anytime you play in the Big 12, I feel like it's a extended fraternity of Texas high school football. So some of these guys, they played deep in the playoffs in high school. Some of these guys were in their district. So that familiarity with who's across the field from you, or hey, I played against this guy in high school, or hey, I went to a camp and this guy, or hey, we went to the same official visit, you know, when I was a prospect. It's a unique thing, you know, so it's a lot of ties, no matter if we're playing Iowa State or Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Baylor. It's going to be a lot of familiarity as we establish this Texas to Tempe pipeline. It's kind of a race for Texas in the Big 12. Otherwise, you're going to play a team that's going to have a lot of talent and you won't be able to match up. So.
Did you get to go to any Texas games when you were there? Did you take a couple days?
Yeah, I didn't take a couple days. So my mom's birthday was today, so I was able to go out on Friday and take her out, have a little nice dinner or whatnot. But I was also able to, you know, put the Texas to Tempe T-shirt on and go to a few high school games, you know, because that validity playing on Thursday in Texas on national television just brings Texas to Tempe a little bit closer to our targeted demographic.
Yeah, you got some really young corners, and I talked to Tony yesterday about what it's like to be 17 especially.
Yes.
How different is it when you get kids that are that young and you're bringing them far from home? Is that another kind of different part of your job, is kind of being the dad and being
but the beauty of recruiting is to see these relationships develop organically. You know, obviously Rodney's a guy that's on the travel squad. He's a guy that's playing. So the group of guys that he's kind of clicking up with is kind of upperclassmen. Versus Tony and Chris might be a little bit in the pod because they're sharing similar experiences. So just to see these guys befriend each other, you know, during this college experience is something that's cool to watch as a coach, and just knowing as they grow older as adults, this is more likely to be his best man at his wedding than so-and-so that was at his high school with him. So got a young group, you know, and me and D-Walk are constantly telling those guys, look, we're capable of everything, of anything, but we're entitled to nothing. So we got to take advantage of every opportunity we get. We get to prove it on Saturdays, every Saturday, that we belong here, because on paper going into the season, it's a young, inexperienced group. So just keeping those guys hungry, keeping them humble, and keeping them excited for any opportunity that's presented in front of them is basically the vision we're moving forward with.
Do you take it when you recruit these guys, you look at their maturity? Is this a guy that can handle being in a Power One program, being away from home, maybe being thrown out of his comfort level, like you guys like to say?
Yeah, and the pitch is, you know, let's limit distractions. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. You might have to be a little vulnerable, but there's where the growth happens. You know, being away from home, limited distractions. It's not like you can go home on the weekend and see your girlfriend and go see mom and have a home cooked meal. You're out here on a mission, you know, so we can kind of keep the train on the tracks as far as we already put this address in the GPS. This is where we're going, and this is the process to get there.
Thank you, Coach.
Awesome. Thank you.